Hi, I'm Matt Collins. I'd like to welcome you to Bob Weber Auto Mart on Douglas Avenue here in Racine, across from Douglas Park. We specialize in 1-year-old, low mileage, almost new cars. And if you'd like to stop by and see them, or see them on our website, bobweberautomart.com, we could save you between $5,000 and $10,000 on your next almost new car purchase.
I'm Michael Burke, and this is Money Talks. Hi, welcome to Money Talks, the Journal Times online business show. I'm business reporter Michael Burke, and today we're at InSinkErator, the birthplace of the garbage disposer, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, with Tim Ferry, the president, and Michael Keleman, manager of environmental engineering. And we're actually doing this at a really interesting time. You guys, the company just turned 75 years old, which we'll get to in a minute about the history. Michael, what is manager of environmental engineering? That's not a title I think I've ever heard before.
That's a great question. I have a very exciting, and I'm grateful to have a position here at InSinkErator. Coming from a wastewater treatment background, I really serve in a technical capacity to help people understand and communicate the impacts of disposers. So we oversee research projects on how disposers impact the wastewater treatment plant, for example. But I'm in a really interesting role because there's a global trend to divert organics from landfills. And also wastewater treatment plants are moving towards energy independence, resource recovery, clean water, energy, and fertilizer. So disposers fit perfectly into that role. They help divert organics from landfills and to help treatment plants become resource recovery facilities.
Yeah, that's good. And we'll come back kind of to that topic. But let's talk about this really fascinating history. Tim, you're kind of the new guy in town. You've been in your position, what, a couple of years now?
Yeah, just almost 2.5 years.
Yeah, but I'm sure you know a little bit about the history. So talk about the invention and how it came about and who invented it.
It was started in 1927. John Hammes was the inventor of the garbage disposal. He wanted a convenient appliance to take care of the food scraps that his wife was generating in the kitchen. And it was interesting because we just celebrated our 75th anniversary at the headquarters here a week ago Sunday. And we had about 20 members of the Hammes family join us for that, which was kind of unique. But one of the granddaughters said that he also invented it because he couldn't get 2 of his boys to take out the trash. So it's an interesting development. So he started in this garage with tinkering with this device.
By the way, he wasn't an inventor per se, right?
No, he's an architect, a famous architect in Racine, Wisconsin. Yeah. So he started tinkering with this device in 1927. He ended up getting a patent in 1935. And started InSinkErator in 1938.
By the way, the story goes, according to your company history, it was that night at supper that he had this idea, and before he went to bed, he had a prototype.
So, in fact, we have the original device in our museum here.
Oh, really? Oh.
And we got it out and showed everybody at the 75th anniversary.
Cool. Yeah.
So that kick-started the invention of the food waste disposer, and 75 years later, we're the leading manufacturer of garbage disposers. They're often called garbage disposers. We call them food waste disposers. They're one and the same. But a really interesting history of the company in the 1940s with the war going on. We went away from manufacturing disposers into making defense parts for the government.
Do you know, did they actually stop making them? And then...
No, they also made disposers for hospital ships for the war, to support the war. Again, we started in 1938. We made 52 units, a whopping 52 units in our first year. And then the late 40s, with the post-war, with the building boom that happened, it was interesting because there was about 18 competitors that emerged. So we had this patent, we had a unique product, but everybody else, in terms of the landscape of our manufacturing base in the U.S., saw that there was an opportunity to manufacture disposers. So they got into the market in a big way. But what really differentiated us was the relationship that we started with the plumbers. Most of those companies started selling into the appliance dealers. So, businesses that had sold washers, dryers, dishwashers, they sold disposers as well. But we went a different path and got to the plumber to really recommend with the homeowner the use of a convenient appliance that was more hygienic and could get rid of their food waste instead of throwing it in the garbage. So that's how really we got traction and differentiated ourselves. And we started a TV campaign in the 1950s with George Burns and Gracie Allen and Bob Barker, and eventually went on to Doris Day and Sam Snead. And
Phyllis Diller.
Phyllis Diller was in the 70s with Barbara Walters, and so it
That's
was
a really diverse list of celebrities.
It is, yeah. So we had different colors of product that we manufactured in the 50s and 60s, kind of like the iPods do today, but we were ahead of our time to differentiate. And then Emerson, who's our parent company today, acquired InSinkErator in 1968. So
now Emerson is, we should point out, Emerson is a St. Louis-based company. And this is one of those stories where there's an acquisition and the Racine company stays put. You guys are still manufacturing them here?
We are. In fact, we have been at this site. Actually, the Hammes family put the manufacturing on the map in the 21st Street location in Racine in 1962. Emerson bought the company in 1968, and we've been here ever since. And we've put a lot of capital in terms of automation, equipment, tooling, et cetera, to really make it a first-class, world-class operation. We are the only U.S.-based manufacturer of disposers, and we are the we are the leading manufacturer. Yeah, all of our competitors manufacture in China.
Wow, and I believe you have a small manufacturing presence in China to take advantage of that market, but most of them are made right here in Racine.
Made here. Yeah,
how many employees do you have locally?
We have right here locally. We have about 1,100 employees.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
so you got the headquarters, the R&D facilities are here. The manufacturing, most of it is still
all
here.
All the R&D, all the hourly folks, salaried folks. Really automated facility. We have all the tool and die shops. All the engineering administration is here. So, and again, it's been here since 1962. We have expanded a little bit since then in terms of volume.
I assume there's some ripple effects too when you have manufacturing. There's ancillary employment for tool and die makers in this area?
Yeah. I mean, we actually we source a lot of product in terms of plastic components and tool and dies, molds, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of our supply base is within the local region. Whether it's 50 miles or 300 miles, it's we have a really localized supply base, which is important in terms of supporting the community.
Yeah, it sure is.
But also reducing inventory and that type of thing. So it's really been an efficient operation for InSinkErator.
Well, let's talk about a little bit about this process and what, Michael, you alluded to earlier. Are there, when you make a case for disposers in homes and in any place where there's food, whether it be a food service location, how do you make your case for disposers as an environmentally smart choice, besides just the convenience of things?
Well, I think the first thing to remember that people maybe not realize at firsthand is that food waste is at least 70% water, and a lot of it, fruits and vegetables, for example, are closer to 90% water. So that rather than trucking water around in garbage trucks and sending it to the landfill, sending it to a wastewater treatment plant really makes sense.
Yeah.
And sewers are very efficiently designed to transport sewage, and finely ground food waste particles coming out of a disposer in a slurry form are perfectly transported in sewers as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are there any misconceptions about food or garbage disposers? I guess I'm going to continue calling it that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Any misconceptions that you need to kind of knock aside when you make this case?
Probably the biggest one that we hear most often is they use a lot of water. And really, they use about equivalent to 1 toilet flush per day. You know, it's 1 gallon per person per day, about 1% of the daily household usage of water. It's a very minimal amount of the normal household use. Some of the other things that we hear about are energy use. It only takes 3 to 4 kilowatt hours of electricity to operate a disposer in an entire year.
Wow.
So we're talking about 50 cents in
Wow.
electricity. So it's not a lot of energy. Probably from my perspective, from the wastewater industry, we hear most often is that the concern that we're going to overload wastewater treatment plants with too much strength, too much sewage. But on average, about 50% of all the homes in the U.S. have a disposer, and we've been sending food waste to treatment plants for a long time. And if that were the case, we would have certainly heard about it. And if anything, sending that carbon to the treatment plant's a good thing, because now with anaerobic digestion at treatment plants where you can create methane and convert that to energy, sending that food waste to the treatment plant instead of the landfill actually is a much more efficient thing.
You guys actually had to make these really concrete arguments with the city, with New York City, didn't you?
We did.
Talk about that ban a little bit.
New York City had banned food waste disposers up until 1997, and we spent a lot of time convincing the sustainability office and the environmental people in New York that it was a good alternative for disposing food waste instead of the traditional garbage means of, to Michael's point, converting that food waste into potential energy sources. So in 1997, they did overturn the ban. In fact, Raleigh-Durham, they had a ban in 2008. It was quick. It was a overreaction.
I remember writing about this.
Yeah, and we went in and went to the city council and convinced them that was not the right decision, and they overturned that too. So there's a lot of defensive play from an InSinkErator perspective on making sure that this is a right environmental choice from an appliance perspective. And now we're starting to get a lot of traction on them understanding that this is a terrific product to divert the organics from going away from the landfills and getting processed through the wastewater treatment, and those that have advanced facilities can, through anaerobic digestion, can convert that to renewable energy sources. So.
And by the way, this is not just a theoretical argument you make, right? You guys have there are studies that compare using a garbage disposer to trucking
Michael
things
can
to the landfills?
Talk about that in terms of the life cycle assessment.
Over the last 5 years, we've done 3 major studies that help to prove that using a disposer is good for the environment. One of them would be a life cycle assessment. It looks at both the manufacture, distribution, and the use of the disposer, the end of life, and compares 8 types of wastewater treatment using a disposer versus landfilling or composting or incineration. So we understand the greenhouse gas implications, the 4 or 5 other environmental impact categories. Those 8 wastewater treatment plants are always lower in global warming potential than landfilling. So that was an important find. Then we worked with the Water Environment Research Foundation that analyzed 5 different methods as well. And the advanced treatment plant that Tim talked about, the ones with anaerobic digestion that are creating energy and using the biosolids for fertilizer, it's actually, from an operational perspective, the lowest, least expensive option of the 5. And then more recently, we worked with leading wastewater authority George Shavanaclaus and Harold Leverins, both of UC Davis. And they looked at the energy balance and the nutrient removal impacts of using food waste disposers on traditional wastewater treatment plants. There's actually a net energy gain for treatment plants to take the food waste in. And there's also, instead of worrying about the nutrients, which was one of the concerns in New York City 15 years ago, there's actually no incremental increase in nitrogen and phosphorus, and the carbon value of the food waste actually reduces the nutrients in the effluent. So I point to those 3 pieces of research that really help to validate using a disposer is good for the environment.
Yeah.
There's 35 million tons of food waste generated in the U.S. each year. 35 million tons. Only 3% of that gets recycled. The rest goes to landfills. So that's a huge source of methane gas, and why not convert that food waste through anaerobic digestion and convert it to renewable energy sources? So if we can just move the needle a little bit on the recycling side, it's going to go a long way in terms of taking the methane greenhouse gas problem out of the landfills.
What percent of American homes, have a garbage disposal?
It's just over 50% is the penetration in the U.S.
Okay, yeah, so there's room to improve there.
Yeah, you had asked a question too, Mick, in terms of one of the misconceptions. I think part of it is the product use too. That although half the households have a disposer, a lot of people think you can't put bones down it.
Yeah, let's talk about this. Some of the do's and don'ts.
Product uses are. I mean, basically, depending on which model you have, I mean, we have two different platforms. One is our Badger platform, one is our Evolution platform, and the Evolution, basically, you can put anything down the product. We did extensive testing, and the only thing that it really wouldn't grind up was shark's fins, shark skin. And that was the only thing that it wouldn't effectively do a good job of. But in terms of bones,
I don't know what to do with my shark skin.
Yeah, that's right. In terms of any bones, it basically, as we were talking earlier, we grind up about 50 frozen steel rib bones a day in terms of our testing facility. So it'll handle steel rib bones, it'll handle chicken bones. Sometimes there's a little issue with chicken skin that's not cooked, so it's a little rubbery and that may bounce a little bit. So that's not recommended that you put down. It will work depending on which model you have.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, the products are really built to last and can withstand most food types.
What about this thing I remember hearing once about putting ice cubes into a disposer? Is there any value to that, or is there anything you should put in periodically to clean it or sharpen them or anything like that?
Yeah, there's no blades to sharpen.
Okay.
So that's a misconception too. Is that these blades, and I can't put my hand down there. I mean, we don't recommend you put your hand down there when it's running.
Right.
What happens is there's two lugs on the side, and you have the rotation of what we call a shredder ring, and then there's it's basically like a cheese grater on the side of the unit. So the centrifugal force pushes the food waste through that cheese grater, basically, and then with water it will get transported through the piping system. But it's ground very fine, and there's no issues in terms of problems with the piping and the sewer structure. So there's really no issues in terms of different food types. Again, bones are fine, and
steer bones are about the hardest.
They are. In fact,
you guys are grinding them.
Very extensive testing here.
Yeah. Talk about just a little bit about the most recent developments in your Evolution line, which is your, I guess, upscale line, or however you want to say that. What are some of the things that those units can do that you couldn't do with earlier units?
Well, our Evolution system, depending on the model, will go up from a two-stage grind and three-stage grind. So there's fineness of grind. It actually grinds the food waste finer than a traditional Badger unit or some of our competitive units. There's auto reverse, so a lot of times what will happen if you do get a jam because of potentially something gets clogged in there, you manually would need to take a tool and operate. It's easy to do. It just reverses the spin and it undoes the jam. But with our Evolution system, there's an auto reverse, so at each cycle it reverses the opposite way so that it minimizes any potential jam. On our top of the line unit, which is the Excel, it actually has an electronic sensor in the system that it can sense whether there's potential bone or something that may jam the product, and increases the torque of the motor to give it a little more oomph to get rid of that potential jam. So.
Also, don't those units address, my unit at home, if I put something kind of big and chunky in there, the sink kind of goes like this, and there's vibration and sound and all that. You guys have improved that with these units as well, right?
We have, yeah. In fact, we've got what we call sound seal technology. So we did extensive research in terms of customers wanted a quieter product. They wanted a product that ground up in finer particles. So we've met that. And we've got a new baffle design on our Evolution, which dampens the noise as well. So it's pretty significant in terms of the fineness of grind advantages and the sound advantages. They're much, much quieter, up to 60% quieter than the standard unit that we have today.
Well, in the last couple minutes or so, let's just talk about where your business, what your business strategy and growth opportunities are a little bit, because with the recession and with the foreclosures and all of the homes on the market, there are not a lot of new homes being built in this country. So where are your opportunities? Where are you kind of pushing in?
Well, the residential construction is coming back, which helps us. We have a strong replacement market here, which helps us too. So traditionally, disposers will last 10 to 12 years, and so that's a good part of our market. And our international business is strong. So, we're investing in those areas that really don't understand the benefits of the food waste disposers as most Americans do that grew up with them. So in Europe, in a lot of areas, there's a lot of growth in the UK, Russia, for example. Some areas of the world still have bans on the disposers, so we're working with those governments to talk about the environmental benefits, because they have huge issues with waste going to their landfills. They need solutions, and this is an alternative to composting. China, for example, is the same way. They have adopted disposers in a meaningful way, and they understand that they have waste problems, so they turn to disposers as a convenient solution to minimize their waste products going into landfills. So international is a big opportunity for us. The U.S. continues to be our biggest market, our strongest market, and with the residential construction coming back, that's helping as well.
Well, good luck, and I hope this company is still in Racine in 75 years.
Well, I always tell our folks here that, in these international markets where it's not developed, it's like being in InSinkErator in the 1940s. So there's big opportunity, and hopefully we'll have, we'll be the leading market share provider in those countries ahead. So, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Well, thanks a lot. Tim Ferry, president of InSinkErator, and Michael Keleman, manager of environmental engineering. We've been doing this show here at InSinkErator in Racine. You've been watching Money Talks. I'm business reporter Michael Burke. Thanks to our producer, Greg Shaver. And you can check us out online for more archive shows. And please remember, Money Talks.